Welcome to the episode of new episode, I should say. Wow, we're off to a good start. New episode of All That Jazz. I'm your host, Matthias, and I have with me Michel O'Hare. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Matthias.
It's been a long time. I think
It has.
if my recollection serves me right, it was July or August of 2020, or maybe June that we did it.
Yeah, it's been
And
some years.
and a lot of things have changed. So yeah.
Yes,
And today we're gonna talk about entities removal, right? Is that the
right.
topic?
I sure.
I'm, I'm gonna bring some more light. So I have this that's supposed to emulate sunlight. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these,
Mm-mm.
and you turn it on.
Oh,
Look, and it's gonna lit me better. And it is more light on me. Yeah,
yeah.
we're gonna need all the light we can get.
Yes.
um. And actually, that note, do you mind if I start with I usually don't do this with the prayer. Let's start with the Lord's Prayer.
Let's do it.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
In heaven,
hallowed be thy
hallowed
name.
be thy name.
Thy kingdom
Thy
come,
kingdom come,
thy will be
thy
done
will be done
on earth
on
as there
earth
is in
as it is
heaven.
in heaven.
Give us today our
Give
daily
us
bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive
as we
those
forgive them.
who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom,
The kingdom
and the
and the
power,
power
and the glory,
and the glory
forever and ever.
forever and ever.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. So hopefully that set the context better. Um, Now I know. So for those of you who don't know, M Michelle and I go way back, and we're both because of the work of David R. Hawkins, which has changed my life, and I'm sure it has changed your life as well, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, I go. I think 2009 or 2010, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, First only online, and then at a doc lecture we met, and um I don't know if you know, Scott Peck wrote a book called People of the Lie,
Never
and
heard
it's
of that.
about
What is
people
that?
that are like below 200, and
Okay.
normal people have their the priority as their themselves, but people of the lie, or in doc terms would say people below 200, their first priority is self-esteem. So
Mm,
that's why they lie, to protect themselves, to save face.
right.
Um, and he wrote another book because people of the lie. At the end there's a chapter when he does exorcism,
Mm,
and there's another book he wrote called Glimpse of the Devil, which I thought it would be fun to read because uh, why not prove the existence of God by seeking for the opposite? I was like, maybe if I attend something like that, and then I read the book and I was like, nah, I think I better not. It's very intense, and very scary.
yeah, okay.
So I imagine this is not the way you work. And it's not because okay, entity attachment has different levels, right? There's a complete control and there's like different levels of attachment, right?
Yeah, yeah, it depends on like how much it's in charge.
Mm. So you don't do like a full on if a person is full on possessed, you don't like do those cases, or do you?
Well, typically in those cases, people aren't going to come to you.
Right.
And if they do, they usually won't come back without some sort of like really heavy need, like a moment of when it's not solely in charge and they can actually get to a session. But I'm open to doing whichever.
Okay. Because the way that he Scott Peck described it in a book, and he seems really intense. Like it's like like I don't know, 8 day ordeal or something. It's like, oh no, maybe not. It wasn't 8 days. Maybe it was like 4 days or something. But it seemed like really intense, and it required a team of 7 people. I was like,
That's the old way of
wow.
doing it, you know, and that's why it's so intense is because you have all these connections. It depends on where you're looking at. Through body talk, there is little tentacle connections that are in different parts of the person's being or in the person's environment. That it's, for one, blocking those areas from the person, and it's feeding itself to keep itself there and to keep
Mm,
itself alive because, you know, it's found a cozy place to find a home. And with IFS, you find all the parts inside of the psyche that, for whatever reason, invited it in, and has promised them, you know, not to be alone. You know, to have, you know, if they didn't have like a mother and a father around, you know, it gave them some sort of like, you know, someone that's there, can pose as giving someone who feels weak strength. So there's a lot of parts in us, which is why we see the craziness with exorcisms that are not giving permission to let go of this thing. So you're kind of going at it like this.
mm,
So there's a gentler way of doing it.
right.
Yeah.
Which I guess like forces it out like an eviction
Yes.
with a classic like Catholic exorcism, you might call it. And your way is more like inviting it to come. It's like, because I know some people do it the way they invite it back to go into the light, but what if they don't want to go into the light? Like,
So with like with body talk, you're not really speaking to it. You're finding its location and then you're keeping it there.
yeah.
So it doesn't jump or anything like that while you find the different connections, and you're either severing it or shaving it. Um, Shaving is where you're bringing down its communication. So it's like if it had like ultimate communication, if you're shaving it, that means you're lessening the communication. It's just not ready for it to be severed and moved out.
Hmm.
Um, but with IFS, we actually locate them, and they pose as like something that's really super scary, you know, just to keep that fear factor in there.
Hmm.
But you're finding the little tentacles that are basically connected to different parts of someone's psyche, and then you're dealing with each of those parts to where they give permission to let go. And so once you get all those to let go and to come back to the person, you know, the adult, um, then it has to go. And you
Hmm.
have to make, you know, you have to have someone there that knows, uh, without a benefit of a doubt, that you do have to go, and you have to take all your troops and any kind of items or anything like that. And I always give them an option. So with going to the light, it's like you can help them to feel secure in going to it. But if they don't want to, I always say, or you can go back to the dark. You know, it's like it's your choice, but you do have to leave here because no one wants you here anymore.
Hmm.
So
What if they what if they turn aggressive or something? What if they turn combative?
um if they turn combative, it's that's why a lot of people like do a lot of fear mongering around this stuff, is because not everybody can do this work. You have to be a person that has not afraid, and you don't want to show any kind of anger. So you want to be able to be in a space where you're just solid, and you're just like, it can be any way that it wants to be, and you can still just go, okay,
Hmm.
I hear you. And, you know you have to go. So you just kind of have to hold that space of strength.
Has this happened to you where there was an entity that didn't want to go easily?
Yeah. There was one that she was like trying every trick in the book. And the last thing that she tried was, she goes, "Look, I have this contract." And she like unravels this long contract, and I don't know where it came from, because we're all just kind of learning and trying shit. And I told her, I said, you know good and well any contract you make with a minor is null and void. And
Hmm.
the contract just disappeared, and she was pissed.
Wait, so that implies that if you make a contract with entity that's below when you're over 18, that but then again, why would the nonlinear domain have um that's an interesting point. Why would the nonlinear domain have a they make a distinction between a minor and somebody over 18? Oh, because they can fully make a choice rather than being duped by it.
Maybe so.
Hmm.
I mean, awareness is aware, of all the nuances and such.
Wow. This this is scary stuff. I know a lot of doc students that just keep away from this altogether, and
Yes,
for a reason. And but
absolutely.
if you're called to do it, then there is a reason why you're called to do it. And for those of you who don't know, the background is you had a drug addiction, right? And it was like if you guys want to, I'll link also the previous podcast that we did, but you had a quite an intense upbringing and up until your early mid 20s, right?
Um, I think the craziness really started to settle down in my 30s, like my early 30s.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So it was like so it really to kind of toughen you up through adversity because you were given a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
you learn a lot of discernment too, like being in the drug world, so
hmm, yeah. Because like I imagine if somebody comes from a like a rich background, most of them would not be able to handle this unless they had some, I don't know,
previous
like a
lifetime stuff,
like or yeah, or like a military background, or even that. I don't know. And people would still be scared of doing that, even if they have a military background.
Right. They don't teach you about this in the military.
Hmm. So at one point did you become, because I know you started Body Talk journey like about the time we did the first podcast, or maybe no months before. So that was like 2020, 2019, right? Or about that.
Yeah,
And then at what
yeah.
point did you like start to be interested in, did you like notice clients having certain issues with attachments, or was it IFS that you started doing and then you noticed people have attachments to them?
Okay. That's a good question. So backing up, when when my son killed himself, and he had a lot of voices in his head. And when I was like, in grief and mourning, I remember listening to Doc on this, I don't remember which one it was, but it was a particular talk where he said, instead of like staying in, the gloom and doom and woe is me, he's like, why don't you take and do something positive in their name? And I was like, that just really lifted me up. I didn't know what it was going to be at that time, but I was
Hmm.
just like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And I also had another child that started going kind of under at the same time, and I saw them actually possessed, and I they had a voice that was not theirs speaking through them, and had a lot of mechanical movements. It was really scary at that time. I was not prepared for that. um but fast forwarding, I had to wait because Body Talk has it done in increments, different advanced modules, and I was not yet at the advanced module that taught about entity removal.
Hmm.
But when I went into IFS, I just had this, without any training or anything, I had this person that had a part that was this like wet, greasy, scary monkey thing, and it was pretty scary, and I'm like, oh shit.
Wow.
I need some training, so I went and asked somebody who is one of the lead people in IFS for, his name's Bob Falconer, and he trained me. And from there on, I had clients that were coming in with, um, they call them unattached burdens in IFS. So I just started working with them from then on.
Why is it called unattached burdens? Is it because they're not classically attached in the IFS terminology?
Well, a lot of us would argue with the naming of that because it really doesn't make any sense.
Right. Because
With
they are
with
attached in some way, right? That's why the
they
attachments.
are they are attached, and I mean more so they're kind of like critters.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna share some. I'm not usually the sharing like much. Well, I am sometimes. Anyway, we I did a session with somebody that I was on my podcast a few podcasts ago, Marie, and she found an entity or something, and then after and supposedly that entity was influencing the porn stuff that
Mm.
the because I'd have every 3 or 4 months a relapse or sooner than that and even though I'm on a spiritual path not always fully dedicated I will admit but there still keeps coming back so she was like oh you have this and I always wondered first of all why some people notice it and other healers don't because I've like dabbled in a lot of different things and she said it was like hiding or something hiding in the spine area or something so we did that and I felt better but then there was also I don't know I think it kind of brings back something you were talking about well maybe just in my mind but it was like this it's really weird to say, but it was like this instant like or this fear of like cursing yourself or stuff or like an invitation. And I don't know if I'm like making like if I'm just freaking out in my mind or if that's something that was consciously happening. But but there would be some mornings when I wake up and there would be like almost like a invitation to do that and I was like I know not to do that but at the same time it's like really weird and bizarre and is that what could happen if something is removed and then there's still a piece of it still grasping to it.
Um, Unfortunately, I've noticed that a lot of people who do like entity removals, they don't they're not able to do it the whole way. So I
Hmm.
don't know like if it was complete or if it exasperated it or you know what I mean? But uh, when you were saying why do some healers see it when others don't,
Yeah.
sometimes people can be a little like entity hunters, you know what I mean? Or we're going to go find them, you know, and we're going to get them, you know, sort of thing. And the beautiful thing about IFS and body talk is it's more like gentle and it's priority based. So we only go to it when that's ready and when it's like it's time, you know, when you know you and your subconscious is like, okay, we're ready to go to this next thing.
Hmm. I see because sometimes if something is removed and person's not ready there might be problems. I hadn't thought of that but then one might argue that anything any attachment um that's on there is de facto bad, but then that doesn't mean that you're ready to have it removed, right?
Right? Or that it certain ones may need like a little extra something, you know, some things can be like really sticky and there's this extra thing that needs to be, you know, put in place. Um, one beautiful thing about body talk is that, with severing any kind of like attachments and stuff like that, there can always be a temporary field formed in order to be supportive of that shift.
Hmm.
I find that
Right.
super helpful.
Yeah, we've done body talk many times, and there's often these things that run for like maybe a few days or a week or sometimes 2 weeks after, to support
Yes.
the healing. And I think it's infinitely fascinating the way that happens in body talk.
We're just getting like a little like eye hole of how the universe works, because we have all these concepts of time, here on earth, and like we're like slaves to our calendars, and oh, I have to meet this person at this time, and these new things that I learned in body talk is like time variables, and it can, this part of the formula can run like this, and it can keep coming at it again at a new state of healing, and then the formula change and then come at it again, and I'm just
Hmm.
like, whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah, and there's so much we don't even know. Like, I often wonder why some people like there's a football player or soccer player, Lionel Messi, that when he was young, he was already had a lot of skill with football, and he could just, do whatever. And I often wonder if that's already, that must be like God's gift, or that must be like a thing that they decide, oh, I'm gonna have this gift before they reincarnate. Maybe it's that. And it might be also the same with maybe it's the same with kind of attachments. Maybe some people, do you know if some people are born like in families where there's attachments, and that just passed down to the next
Yes,
generation? Oh
absolutely.
wow, hmm that's concerning. That's wow, that's really concerning.
Yeah, you can have like I had a client whose family had a belief system about around being a bad mother, and it was something that was trickled down, and it also brought a heaviness that could, that was entity like, down through the generations, which was altering the connection between mother and child, and already, seeing yourself as a failure, and you're just born with that preset, but it's your karmic inheritance. So
Hmm.
um it's like, when we come into these lives where we have like our lunch packed already in a sense, and
Or
then
none.
we get to or none, or none. And then we see what we're gonna do with it, just like the soccer player, he could have worked, a lifetime of trying to become that great athlete. It's just the same as enlightenment, when you're working on something, sometimes it takes many lifetimes, and then this one lifetime, you could be like Ramana Maharshi, and you're a teenager just walking, and all of a sudden, poof, but
That's an interesting like hypothesis that skills are transferable. Some skills, obviously, language is usually not transferable, and you don't remember the languages you spoke before.
right.
Um, but I've heard of cases where people like were like had head injuries, and all of a sudden they could like play piano. I don't know if that's the brain working in a different way, or that's like a skill from a past life that's been activated.
Yeah,
Who
right.
knows?
Who knows?
Like the mystery of life. And who knows if
Yes,
somebody really banged hard Messi on the head, maybe he'd lose that. Maybe, or maybe that's karmic too. I don't know. Like, it's so
yes,
mysterious, isn't
yes.
it? So so okay, going back to the attachment thing, because I've had like people, some healers say, oh, you have this attachment because you're not grounded, and then it seemed to be like an easy one. So is that a common one, where somebody's not grounded, and if they're in a space where there's a lot of weird energy, that they just pick up stuff?
Oh, you're talking about taking on people's energy and emotions and stuff like that. They call it what is the word for it they use? That you're empathetic, empathic,
Yeah,
yeah. Is that what you're talking
but
about?
it could be also either that, or it could be something in the space that's lingering there, and you go into that space, and then if you're susceptible to it, you might catch some of it, I guess.
If you're susceptible, if you have like that little opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then such a thing does exist then. You do, if you're empathetic, if you're especially if you're connected to some people that might be not, let's say, not good for you. And oh, and then that's where another comes in, because I know Doc calibrated I believe at 250, sex at 250. However, I've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, that there's a lot not understood. So I imagine if you have, let's say, hypothetically,
Okay.
if you're in an intimate relationship with somebody that has an attachment or is below 200 or both, then wouldn't you be in some way taking on some of what they've got?
Mm. That just depends. There's not
How
like a
open you
yes or
are.
no.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it depends. You know how like we're taught, by our teacher that there's not this causing of that.
Yes. Okay.
So it's kind of like, if you have that
Mm.
seed, like that plant, that he talked about before, that there was never that plant there for years, for years, for years. And then just one day, all of a sudden, this plant just grows. So it's like if everything's in line for that opening to be there, and you're with this chick that, has creepy crawly, there's so many like nuances to that sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, so it's personal, on a personal basis.
Hmm.
Um, so okay, so when somebody comes to you, is it usually like would you notice it, or would you have to like search for it if somebody has like an attachment?
Um, it depends. These days, I can sense it, or if someone, were to ask me, hey, do I still have some of that in me? And I can, if I have permission, I can just muscle test and go, yep.
Okay, let's try that then. Well, first test if that was an actual entity that she removed, or what was it? Now we're going deep here, but why not? Let's just, for the benefit of the audience here.
It was an entity, but she did not remove it.
Oh, but wait. So okay, but so let's say 'cause I like percentages. So did she remove some percentage of it though?
In a way, yes.
In a way, in a way, yes. And what does that mean? In a way, yes. That's very interesting.
We would have to like muscle test for a long time.
Okay, okay, or okay. Maybe this is too much.
So whatever stuff that was a part of it, like maybe some things that were holding it in place might have
Oh,
been, cleared.
okay. So it's like maybe some parts got detached, but there's
Yeah,
still other parts attached
holding on.
in a
Yeah.
way.
Hmm.
Ooh, okay. So but then you can muscle test, but you can also feel it in some instances, you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel it sometimes. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, I don't know if I would want to have that gift.
It's not like a big deal, because it's just like a knowingness. Like if you get around someone and you can tell somebody's in a bad mood,
Okay,
and you're
yeah,
just
okay,
like,
okay.
yeah,
Most
it's
people
not
have
like,
that.
oh, yeah, that, oh, this is a terrible thing. This person's going to give me their germs or something. So it just depends on how you hold it. And it just
Okay.
gives me awareness and that sort of thing. But I'm not worried about somebody's, you know, goo getting on me, you know? I'm just like, oh, here's an opportunity, you know?
That's awesome. The kind of positive attitude, and also, attitude of helping. This is an opportunity to help people.
Yes,
Hmm.
huge.
So, is it okay? Because I want to maybe do a few more. Can I? Is it okay if I do a few more questions on this? Or
Yeah, of course.
so is it because the entity was not ready to be removed yet? Is it because of that?
You weren't ready yet.
Yeah, I wasn't ready yet. Ooh, okay, that's interesting. Hmm. So a person can work themselves up to be ready
Yes.
to the moment. So does that entail just the classical like spiritual work, or is there a different component to this?
Well, you know what's amazing is that the majority of people that I've had the pleasure of facilitating this removal are on the path. They're doc students. And so being on the path gives you like that buffer and that foundation, of course. But I think it also, we're more open and we're doing this work, we're in the subconscious and looking, owning the most yucky parts of, the animal and, ourselves and stuff like that. And so comes up in that same category because these uh whatever you want to call them, uh darker parts, of the shadow, they they really like either help us feel, stuff like self-loathing and we get comfortable with that.
Hmm.
It's like, what would I do without, hating myself? I mean, I
Yeah,
know that,
yeah.
people don't understand that, but that's true because you get used to doing it for so long that it feels so like in your skin, natural. If I don't have that, even with healing, it's like I've had clients that are like, well, if I heal, well, then what? I'm in the unknown. I know what it's like to have all this disease and pain and
Yeah.
complaining and,
Comfort zone. It's the comfort
huh,
zone. Oh,
it
I
is.
know, I know what this is like.
Yes, yes, totally. What was the question? Because I feel like I just went somewhere.
I have no idea.
Okay.
Uh, no, it was like, I think you were talking about why was it is it the
Oh, being on
spiritual
spiritual
foundation
path.
that's necessary for you to remove it?
Not necessarily because I've had people that aren't necessarily on a path that were, ready, to do that. I think it helps.
Hmm. But wouldn't if somebody is doing a lot of spiritual work and they going up, wouldn't the entities by themselves leave if you're or maybe not. I don't know how that works. If you're like really intent, if you're doing a lot of work, I guess it depends on God's grace, and then it's the
Hmm.
good karma that then removes it for you. I guess you have the angels, and obviously they're more expert than all of us.
Absolutely.
They can just boom. Done.
Yes, absolutely.
You're gone.
Yeah. Time's up,
Ah.
brother.
So that seems encouraging. If they could be that too, right? If I don't know, it seems like there's a lot of unknowables with this, right? From this field.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So if somebody wanted to have this removed, then is would be do you do like a special session outside of IFS or body talk that you already do?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. You're this is the beginning stages of it.
Yeah, I've been praying about that, and I'm like, isn't there like an easier way that we can just, like you said, ping? Yeah. But no, it for right now it's just a it's an IFS thing or a body talk thing as far as what I do. And it really like it's like a journey. You
Hmm.
get there when you get there because I've been uh, let's just say there's a person that I've been working on for um, since I started, so a
Hmm.
couple years, and just the other day it showed up, and I was like, I was wondering when you were going to show up,
Really? Because you
and
knew that it was there. You knew that it was
yes.
there.
Yes. So I was just waiting, because it's not my time, it's really divinity's time. And it came up and I was like, hey.
I see you there hiding.
But I've seen so much beauty, in this work because like um there was a female who we removed 13 actually. Not in one session, but a bunch of consecutive sessions. And now she's not so scared and she's like making decisions for herself and moving forward in life and taking personal responsibility of her life, and it's just like wow. And I had another client, after removing one, he was able to get a good job and he was able to get, what we call his big boy flat, and a car and, start dating again. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like it,
Oh,
it,
do
it
I know this
blocks you
person?
off and it just like stops everything, and it's like a shroud. And when you take that shroud off, all of a sudden it's like you can breathe and there's light. So that's why I love this work.
Oh wow, that's so amazing. But it does seem to me most people that are below 200 wouldn't be even like wouldn't be even interested in entity removal, let alone body talk or IFS. But I could be wrong, right? They do. There must be cases where people come and they're still below, right?
There's a that's an interesting question because I've had a couple of people um come to me and I feel like I'm not sure if they calibrate as a whole below 200, but they present as that because they're so taken over by these dark forces,
Hmm.
um, which those are the more complicated ones because there's a lot of pride and stuff that gets in the way, and especially if they're doing docs work and really big into calibrations, that sort of stuff can sometimes get in the way too. But there's still like a curiosity. It's just it's hard to keep it depending on what's in charge in the moment,
It's hard to keep what?
keep the attention of the person to healing,
Hmm.
because there's always like so much shifting going on within their psyche, who's in charge, who's not. So,
Hmm. Oh, so that's almost like that's almost like well, it's not 100% possession, but because that would be all the time, right? If somebody is possessed 100%.
I feel like there's not like a black and white to that either.
Hmm.
I believe there's moments where they are there, and then almost like they get, tied up and thrown in the back seat for a little while, and then they able to get free from the ties and binds, and then they're back in the seat. So it's really
Hmm.
interesting.
Well, like almost like Alzheimer's, where a person forgets, but it's not all the time.
Or like schizophrenia or
Yeah.
like DID,
DID? What's DID?
dis dissociative identity disorder, which was multiple personality disorder back in the day.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They renamed it?
Yeah, they rename everything, you
Oh
know?
man, how am I gonna keep track of all these things? They just keep renaming it just to
Yeah.
and probably adding more diseases and then fuller spectrum, more spectrum than everybody. Then there will be one of these days when everybody will have a mental illness and then be like, well, if everybody has it, then it's like a bit meaningless.
What's amazing about mental illness is if you go in the DSM-5 and you look at any chronic mental illness and you look at the little different subheadings underneath it, you know, that you're supposed to, well, if you have 5 or 6 of these, then you definitely have this. Like each one of those could present as like a part of the psyche.
Hmm.
So if you
But not
think
the
about
whole.
that.
But not the whole.
So there's a
Hmm.
bunch of parts of the ego working together, and then it looks like OCD, or it looks like major depression or bipolar.
But even that might not be 100% of the time, and there might be times because I knew some. Well, it depends on the, I guess, medication. But I knew this bipolar girl, and it just scared me when she was in that bipolar thing. It was just like, wow, just like
Yeah,
and then later on, she claimed she didn't even remember some of it too.
that's true.
But that really taught me, an important lesson to that there's a degree of craziness that I cannot handle anymore.
I hear that.
Yeah. Wow. This is gonna be bothering me a little bit because I need to get maybe we'll do some work after, but so if somebody's not ready to have something removed, then how do you get them ready?
How do you get them ready?
How do they get themselves ready? Would be more
Right.
better question.
Well, if you believe that there are no accidents and that whatever happened was supposed to happen, you know,
Hmm.
it's
Okay.
just part of, you know, the um seemingly chronological order of how things are supposed to shift for you, you know?
So it kind of relieves some of the blame because they often go into blame, guilt, and shame that something is the way it is. But something is the way it is. If a flower or a grass is very small, that's just the state it is right now,
Right.
and it'll grow given the conditions. If the conditions are good, as Doc would say, it all depends on the conditions. And then like you said with the seed,
Mhm.
the conditions weren't there for 100 years, and then one day the conditions are there, and then the seed is there, and then boom, the tree or whatever it is starts growing. So wow,
That's true.
that's a really good way of looking at it too.
Yeah. Cause I mean, like Doc teaches about, victim and perpetrator. There's actually no victims or perpetrators, in reality.
Mm. Yeah, let's go into that because that Marxist thing is really and that I would it be fair to say, well, I know what you say, well, the doc saying that nothing causes anything, but the seed
Right.
of Marxism has within it also the potential to bring somebody in some attachments because of the energy field that it resonates in.
Right.
Would you say that everybody below 200 has some kind of form of attachment inherently?
I really don't know.
Yeah, I know you'd say that. It's like, uh,
We've all been below 200 at one point or another.
correct, correct. But I was just wondering if that signifies by necessity that there's some attachments there that, or just that they happen organically or not. Or maybe it doesn't matter because a lot of that maybe falls away by the time you go above. Uh,
Perhaps.
And I'm sorry for those of you who don't know what we're talking about. There's a map of consciousness from 0 to 1,000. And
Hold on.
200 is the level of courage, right? No, do not copyright strike here.
All right.
I'm already saying what it is though. 200 is the level of courage, and then above it is positive stuff like willingness, and love and all that stuff and enlightenment. And below it is like, anger, guilt, and
Shame,
shame.
guilt,
Yeah,
apathy, death,
exactly. So
destruction.
you guys can look it up. And there's a great book called Power versus Force. And although myself, I would start it with transcending levels or letting go.
Letting go.
Letting go, which is simple, easy.
Yes.
Um, Talking about letting go, do you think with letting go, when you do letting go, is it possible that you remove attachments as well?
Um, I believe that sometimes you can with, surrender and letting go. I That's why I was really glad to find IFS, because there's some things that are just really sticky. And even though we're like thinking we're letting go and whatnot, sometimes I feel like there is a spiritual bypassing that's going on that we're not aware of, and
Hmm.
almost like a hiding it away sort of thing, but not really letting it go, but saying that we're essentially letting it go. So it just depends on how grounded we are in, the field, and where our intention is, how strong it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on what that thing is. But sometimes you do need to look it in the face and learn how to be with it in that way, and hear what it has to say, and kind of grow your love from there, your understanding, and being able to see that it is not a part of you. Sometimes we need really that visual or representation to be able to really get that, okay, this isn't me, this is just arising.
Hmm.
um and sometimes it helps for us to hear, the different things that the little inner children went through, in order to hold that space of compassion for them, for it to actually dissolve your attachment and your identity to it.
Hmm. Because I know Padre Pio also had attacks, but that's a different matter. Because Doc did say if you progress spiritually, you might be attacked, but that seems more from the outside in rather than something that's already attached, right? That seems to be a different thing. He said like if you're really making good progress, that you may be to not be naive, that you may, that they might come after you,
Right.
like they did with Padre Pio.
That used to
And
scare the shit out of me, to be honest with you.
right. I don't know if you can tell. This would be kind of interesting, but maybe I got no permission. But for Padre Pio, it was actually not attachment. Was it like from the outside in?
I don't have permission.
Yes, I knew. I knew it. Thank you, Padre Pio. Um, yeah. So, um, do you have them do something else after? Because like after a session, normally I feel a lot better after a body talk session, but it must be feel a bit different if you're doing entity removal. And what do people usually report after?
um well, just recently, because it was located in the person's stomach, and we were also in and we were supporting different factors of the digestive tract too at the same time. So when it was removed, there was a lot of like nausea, and this one had like a time variable where it was just going to keep coming at it at different times, for
Hmm.
about 5 minutes on the hour, and then get a rest, and then
Right.
come again. And sometimes he would be not feeling good, while that was going on, feel a little reprieve, and then it would start up again. So
Mm.
some of it, because essentially, like, the way I see a lot of entities is they are really dense belief systems that have become this like embodied energy. And so some of them are just really like stuck in there. So sometimes it takes a bit to kind of get it wedged out to where it's able to freely leave. But it will. And so in the meantime, there's a bit of discomfort. It's momentary.
Mm.
But healing is not just like rainbows and butterflies like everyone seems to think. It's like there is some teeth to it, and it's absolutely worth it, you know? It's momentary instead of like forever, you know?
Well, just like spiritual progress, you'd be like, oh, this is gonna be all loving and all that, and then your family turns on you. You got this going on. It's like, and
Yeah.
this physical thing is happening all of a sudden out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa.
It's more opportunities to test those loving skills, you know, that you're building.
Mm, yeah, what better way to test your loving skills than something that's um negative and it's inside you as well.
It's the
It's
only way, to be honest.
mm,
I mean, because well, it's like we put on those new shoes and we're, on the path and we're like, oh, this feels so great, and then all of a sudden we like just like fall, in a hole, and we're like, what's going on? I was feeling so good. And it was like, okay, well, now you gotta test that. And what are you gonna do this time? How are you gonna
yeah,
react this time?
yeah.
Are
That's
you
the
gonna take
old
this personally this time? Maybe.
yeah, exactly. Man, there's been a lot of that in my life. People
Mm,
actually
me too.
when I was a volunteer, people would actually sometimes get a kick out of teasing me in some in particular way because I'd always react,
Yes.
because I'd always react, and then that would be like, oh, that's funny to them.
Yes.
And but we don't realize people have different triggers, and sometimes it's a bit humor, but sometimes can be usually it's some kind of cruelty to keep repeatedly pushing somebody's buttons, I think. Because I had this happen in my personal life, and then I think after I did some work in a certain 12-step group, I was able to just kind of walk away from that friend, because it wasn't, it was very negative, the
Yeah.
relationship, were toxic.
Right. I mean, there's different levels to everything. Um, I noticed that my husband, he'll do this certain thing that I don't particularly enjoy. And as soon as I like let it go, he fucking stops. It's not like consciously like something that he's planning and manipulating or anything. It's just like, okay, now let's find the next thing for this girl. No.
How can we upset you now?
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's hire the tally. Let's hire the stakes. Let's go up.
It's the
Something
truth
bigger.
in
Yeah.
my reality. Yes.
Talking about maneuvering, manipulation, and all that. Not that I'm doing that, but you said
You just disclaimer, not about me.
it's not about me, but it is about me. And anytime somebody says, not to be rude, but and then they're gonna be rude. So I always thought it was funny, not to
Yeah.
be not to be disrespectful, but he's really not a great guy.
It's like, how else is that supposed to present? But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just
Okay.
this as this that disclaimer is something that's a saving grace of out of the all the rest that they're gonna say after. It's a pass. It's a pass. Yeah. Um, so, um, so you said that when a person is ready, so can you test now if I'm ready to have some of it more removed? Because it sounds like to me the way you're describing that it's a part process. It's not usually a person comes to a session and bang, it'll just be removed because there's a preliminary steps to be taken, right?
Right. It just depends on which way you go. Like with IFS, remember I told you that like greasy, scary monkey thing that appeared in that late. That was my first session with her.
Oh
She
my
had like,
gosh.
yeah,
Okay.
she had a critter, and she had like two ancestral burdens. It was like a circus show. It was like, here you go, Michelle, here's your classroom. And we yeah, we never got to remove that one because it just kept taking over too much. I,
Mm,
was graced to be able to pray it out one time, but it just kept uh
kept coming back.
yeah, coming back.
Oh, that's what happens if you move it too quickly, it just keeps coming back.
Yeah, if there's an
Oh,
opening, because like sometimes you can have a secondary entity in your aura. And what that does is it's like it opens up a little door that says, "Hey guys, come on in." You know what I mean? So not to this, you can either be scared or just be informed and aware that this stuff can happen, and you're not losing your mind.
wait. Secondary aura. I've never heard that before. What is that?
Well, you said it's like layers. So you have a primary
Ah,
one, like in body talk speak. Primary is when it's like,
ah,
exorcism kind of it's
level.
taken over, yeah,
Right,
one of
right,
the
okay.
whole matrices, feminine or masculine.
And how
um
how many levels are there?
I'm sure there's more levels than we actually know.
Ah,
And I'm pretty sure that, I honestly just kind of like go, okay, this is what I've been taught, this is what I've experienced, and I'm holding space for everything that I have no idea about.
yeah. That's probably the
Yeah.
best way because there's
Yes.
in 100 years, uh, I'm sure people will be much smarter about everything than we are now.
Or maybe not.
And I'm asserting the positive here.
I know, I'm just asserting humor.
Halloween is coming, kids. Uh, yeah. So you didn't answer my first question. What
Oh, so
is
my answer to that question is just get a session with me, Matt Jazz. I'm just like
don't do it in public. Good. All right. So it's either people want to book session with you too, because if okay, to backtrack a little bit, what would be the
Okay.
signs if somebody has
Mm,
it would be a very this is very subtle signs that somebody may have. Uh,
okay.
is it
So
any kind of
anyone is,
addiction or any kind?
yes. It's like in addiction, you have like all of your doors are open, as far as when you're going through addiction. If you've been raped, if you've gone through like sexual abuse, um, any kind of like, let's say you were beaten all the time and you would disassociate and you would just like, "Woohoo, I'm going bye-bye." It's like you leave yourself open to that sort of thing. So a lot of times people in comas, let's see, if you have like any really chronic disease and stuff like that, a lot of times that's one of the things that can be just holding that shit in place. Chronic disease that won't quit.
Hmm. It could be also karmic as well. So it's like you said, it's nothing is seems to be 100%. It depends
Hmm.
on the person, on the situation, on their
Absolutely.
on their karma.
Yeah. It's not straight across the board. It's just these are instances.
Hmm. And wow. this is a I guess at an appropriate time. We at the hostel here are decorating for Halloween.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's as a holiday is it must not be that high because it's Halloween. I mean, depending how you practice it, I guess.
I don't decorate for Halloween.
Nah, I mean, here we do.
Yeah,
I don't participate much in it, but it's yeah, it's a different energy to it than obviously compared to Christmas or
right.
Thanksgiving.
Well, we do the candy thing, and we dress up, for Halloween, because we have kids, your kids like that shit.
Mhm.
And this year, someone had posted something on Facebook that gave me a really great idea. I was like, genius. Gonna bring Ariana to old folks' home so that they can see her little costume and, get some of that little kid love.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, as kids, you always need to do something new, something exciting. I always thought that I needed a magic wand and I have a new experience. And yeah, I think travel also is good. Do you think? Oh, do you think do you think one might have to protect themselves when going traveling? Well, I guess if you're susceptible, you might be susceptible here and elsewhere as well. Because I'm going to in a few weeks, going to India, so that's
You
gonna
know
be
what you
exciting.
how you hold your mind. So if you're going there with all this fear and, oh, what if this, or what if I get sick? Because I had a client that she was pretty COVID scared, and she was going to be traveling to Peru, and she's like, Michelle, I need you to check my immune system, and people get sick and stuff. And I looked at her and I said, your immune system is strong. And I said, and you know that if you hold right here all this, I'm going to get sick and stuff, you're just going to be attracting that. You're going to get sick. I said, but your immune system's strong, and just believe that and go, I'm not going to get sick. She came back, she wasn't sick. It's just really,
And that's it. It's how you hold it
yeah.
in mind, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simple things, Doc thought, and what you hold in mind tends to manifest. And I think that's 505, which is about just above the where the level of love starts at 500. And I'm not breaking any copyright here, just a few calibrations. Don't anybody take this down.
Inside joke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, people will know. Those who know know. Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Well, let's see. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we we part?
Um, I wanted I was really glad when you said we should talk about this, because I think that the more that we do talk about it, the
Hmm.
more that it's not like the boogeyman underneath the bed, or,
Yes.
the scary thing over there that we don't want to look at. So if we just normalize this a little bit more and go, okay, there's these things that we really don't know what they are, but they do somehow come into our beingness. And there's good news, is there is a way of getting them not to be there, if, well, if it's your time. But I mean, it's nothing to be scared of. I mean, that's the only thing that it really feeds on, is your fear. I mean, that's the only thing that makes it big, and that's the only thing that keeps it there, is when we're afraid of it, or if we get angry at it.
Hmm. That's beautiful. And yeah, I like this idea. I think we did because I initially coming into before talking to you, I there's a certain level of fear, and then like,
Yeah.
ooh, this is uh this is really scary stuff, attachments, and oh, I don't know. But talking to you and all that, it seems like it's part. it's part and parcel of human life. And as a
Yes,
human, even if you some it's not people's faults. A lot of people come in this world with it, and a lot of people or get it. So it sounds like through the trauma that they've encountered because of their karma, probably. So it's
absolutely.
something that they will heal if they choose to.
Yes.
And there's, I think, now that there's more information out there, and because Doc did say that the chance of enlightenment is, I think, 1,000% or 10. What did he say? 1,000 or 10,000? I'm not sure, but he said
He,
a lot more percentage higher than it used to be.
1,000% higher than it used to be.
So, by the same token, the healing is also like a lot more available than it used to be, and that's
Yes.
I think coincides also. If you're doing spiritual work, chances are you're gonna get healthier anyway. But other people, like, that are not, sounds like they can get help also from people like you, Michelle, and
Yes.
yeah, and that's really wonderful.
If this shit that I've had can heal, anybody can heal. They just
Oh,
have
no,
to.
no, did you mention it? What shit have you had?
What do you mean? Like in my life?
Yeah, the attachments and all that, was there also present in your life?
I had I had I had one um and when it was found it was by someone who wasn't able to like hold that. So my system inside went like hellish for like a week or so before I could find somebody that could properly help me with that. Um but yeah, it was insane. It was like this weird like red devil looking guy like in a laboratory with like experiments and shit. It was pretty, yeah. He had a really good representation and I was just like, "Oh hell no." And but yeah, that came in back when yeah, I was being sexually abused.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, because you did go through a lot, and it was only I think you said by God's grace that addiction was removed, right?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was just like, "All right, kid, you've done your time. You're free now." It's just beautiful.
I think, well, Doc did say that grace is like you're basically, in to paraphrase this, is like you're going out of a jail early. So there is, you know, God's timing. Like there's, you accumulate good karma, but then God meets you sometimes halfway, even more so, because you're like, let's your time is done, kid. Let's go out. Go out
Yeah.
to the pastures, green pastures, you're all good. And now
Well,
I
I mean,
froze. There we go.
yeah, no, you're not good. I mean, you're good because you no longer have the addiction, but then the after, you still have to heal from all the after effects of like, putting that kind of shit in your veins for however many years, the physical still has to heal, the mental, the emotional,
Yeah.
but at least the addiction's gone and you don't have to worry about that anymore. So that is a huge uh, relief at that time.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That must be, so it must have taken a while for the after the addiction, the physical part to heal.
Yeah, it took my brain like 10 years to completely reroute itself to heal, to get the circulation and whatnot to it. And then it just came back better than ever, because I used to be like a honor roll, um, honor society student. Now I feel like it's just like tripled. So I'm like, okay, I got a
Really?
new brain.
That's beautiful. That is
It is.
beautiful.
It is.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on. That was wow. That was really a beautiful conversation, and thank you for speaking about this.
Yeah, thank you for asking me, my friend.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching this podcast.